Hi, welcome to 2020 Tasty Treats. We've been having so much fun this year in 2020, and this time we're doing a series of sampler blocks. So we're doing this pear sampler. So there's a picture up here of all the blocks that we're doing. There's 20 different blocks, so we're going to go for 20 days. We're going to do a different block each day for 20 days. These are the first two blocks that I've just put together just to show you what the block's going to look like. We're not actually going to be making the whole block just yet. We're going to be making the little inner blocks. So these are the little bits that are different within each pear. And I've used two different colours of green for the pears just to give a little bit of movement there. It doesn't have to be, I just thought it would be quite nice to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to be working, I've got one of the pictures of the quilt here. We're going to be working across in rows. So we're starting up here, so we've got a little 9-patch block to do this time. So the blocks inside are just little. So we'll go ahead and we'll get this first one made and the surround so that we've kind of got a little unit ready to go. So this first block, so there is a pattern available through GourmetQuilter.com. It's a downloadable pattern, so each day for 20 days, this is block number 1, so today's the first day. Each day for 20 days there'll be a new download with the new block pattern and the new video link in it. So it tells you what you need to cut for that block. And at some stage there'll be some other information about how to make it into the pear block and things like that. But for now, we're just going to do some blocks. So this first one is just a simple 9-patch. The pieces are not very large because these are only just little blocks. So I've got everything laid out here. So this is going to be my surround, so we'll go to that in a minute. It's just a 9-patch. So I think you probably know how to do that. I'm going to join up the two colours in 3 pairs, and then I'm going to come back and add another one on. So we'll just go ahead and get started doing this so that you're just sure what I'm doing. So because the pieces aren't very large, you do just need to be a little bit careful how we handle them, but really probably no different to any other sort of patchwork. We're always being careful. I know that we are. So I just like to join them up so you can chain piece them through, so that you don't have to keep stopping and starting for every little seam. And so when I've got that first seam done, I can take them out, and then you can either cut them apart or leave them as they are, and we can come back and add on the third piece of the row. So we're making 3 little rows of 3 little squares, and I'm just using 2 colours. So it's quite fun to make these little blocks. We do have to be a little bit careful with seam allowances and things to make sure everything is still fitting, but I know you can do that. And I think the pears are just delicious. I do like pears. So there I've joined my 3 rows of 3 little squares. So now I'm just going to cut those apart, and then I'll press those, and then we can join those up to make the little block that sits inside. Now I'm going to press towards the colour because I'm working with white. It doesn't really matter which way you press, but I'm pressing them both out on that top row, and I've got the colour in the centre here, so pressing them in so that as much as anything you want the seams to be going in opposite directions where they meet so that you can nestle them. So these ones are going out and these ones are going in, and then these ones will need to come out to the colour again. So we've got our 3 little rows there, and now they just need to be joined together, and as I said, we'll nestle those seams. So nothing too hard about this, is very straightforward. It's always nice to see how things are being done. I love watching how people put things together. And I'll just attach the next one as well, and then we'll have our little block and we can see how it's looking. So they don't take very long to make. we'll just give that a press. And this time it doesn't really matter which way the seams go. They've got to go one way or another, so I'm just going to send them both in the same direction. And there we've got a nice little 9 patch. So that's kind of cute already, but we do need, if you look on the picture here, we've got, this is the 9 patch in the middle, and then we've got this surround to put on, which is the base. If you look up here, it's this bit here, so it's the base of the pear, which will also have a white surround, but that goes on later. So to make the little surround now, we've got the block, and then we've got the 2 sides that we put on, very straightforward there, and then for the top and the bottom piece, we need to just make the little corners. So we're just going to put these little corner bits on the 4 corners there. So we can go ahead and do that. So if you have your piece, your rectangles the right way up, and then I've got 4 little squares to go on. I've already marked, they just need a diagonal marked on them so that we can sew on the diagonal, and we're going to put one at each end of these rectangles. And when we put the one on the other end, it has to go in the opposite direction so that they're going to cut the corners off like that. But we'll just get the first ones on first. And so all the blocks will be done in this same way with this little surround on them. So it's coming together already, and we're only on block 1. It's such a fun way to do a little sampler like this, so that you have a little go with maybe some small pieces if you're not used to using small pieces. Try out a few different little blocks, which is always nice. Now when I'm sewing this side on here, I could start over here on the corner and come through. I don't really like starting right on a corner. Sometimes it doesn't really feed into the machine quite as nicely as you'd like. So I'm going to start here, which just feels like we're sewing a little bit back to front, because we don't normally start with the larger part on the inside here, but I find that I get a better start to my sewing if I do it that way, especially when I'm working with small pieces like this, because you don't want them to get tangled up in the machine. It's not helpful. But again, you can chain piece through, so it's not really a problem for that. And then I'm just going to snip those apart. Now I'm going to trim those corners off. So I've got my ruler here, so I'm just going to lay the 1/4 inch line in 1/4 inch in from the edge right over the stitching line, and then just trim 1/4 inch away. And we'll do that on both of them while we're here. And then we need to turn that round and do the other corner as well, and then we can press those. We can get all the sides on. So I'm going to press the seam towards the green. When you're pressing like this, even though it's only a small seam, it is diagonal, and you just be careful that you're not stretching things out of shape as you go. When anything on the diagonal can be a little bit more stretchy than when it's just straight. So just be aware of that. Don't want to alter the shape of your rectangle. And so now we need to pop the sides on, and then the top and the bottom on after that. So I might go ahead and I'll do that, and I'll show it to you when we're just about finished. So I'm just sewing on the last side. I did the first 2 short sides, and now I'm just doing the second one of these longer sides. And this little block can have its surrounds on. Just bring it over and press it. I'm just going to press it out towards the outside. Even though there's a little bulky seam there, I think it'll sit better that way overall. So there we have the block as far as we're going to make it at the moment. As I said, we'll add the pear top and surrounds at another time. So what we've got here is this lower part of the pear. So that was block number 1 for the pear sampler. Oh, it's just looking so much fun. I love these little blocks. So that was block number 1 out of our 20, and so I will see you again with block number 2.